It is exactly 100 years since Frank Buchman, a young American pastor, experienced a deep change in his life. This led to the development of the global movement, initially known as the Oxford Group, then Moral Re-Armament, and now Initiatives of Change. My name is Diana Damsha and I come from Romania. In the last few years, as I got more and more involved with the work of Initiatives of Change, I wanted to learn about the history of this movement so that I can understand its relevance for today and its future. In May 2008, 17 of us from various religious backgrounds and different countries, young and old, had the chance to explore intriguing questions about Buchman and the impact of his work. For 3 weeks, we traveled together, following significant points in his journey, starting where he started in Keswick, England, then to Oxford University. Then we went by bus and ferry to Visby in Sweden, to Freudenstadt in Germany, and finally to the Initiatives of Change World Conference Center in Caux, Switzerland. We were led by Jean Brown from the UK and her Australian husband, Mike. One of our team, Howard Grace from England, created this video of our journey.
In the early 1900s, Frank Buchman was passionately involved in social work in Philadelphia in the US, but he became disillusioned and embittered after falling out with the trustees of the boys' hostel where he worked. Then, at the age of 29, something happened. He had an experience which transformed him. That experience happened in a small chapel in Keswick, in the English Lake District. So our journey began there. That seemingly simple change in Buchman's spirit was so deep and so permanent that it led eventually to his conviction that relationships between religions, races and nations could also be transformed in this way. He understood what is so easy to miss, that effective change in the world starts with change in ourselves.
In Keswick, Dr. John Lester spoke to us and about 40 others who joined us for 3 days about the heart of Buchman's experience.
We often reflect on the fact that he found the answer to bitterness, which he did, but he also found at that time the answer to all the human character traits, which was why he felt bitter in the first place. And so we come to what happened in this little chapel, when he said she, that is the preacher Jessie Penn Lewis, who was preaching in this little church down there, she pictured the dying Christ as I have never pictured him before.
Buchman's essential experience here, what I like to call his I too was wrong moment. I don't know if you've experienced this, but so often the start of something really profound, a real transformation, comes from the moment that one can say, I too was wrong. I have been wrong. An amazing release flows from that. It's amazing how pride stops us from getting to that point.
That same afternoon, Buchman walked with another young man round Lake Derwentwater. As a result of their conversation, the young man also found a release from an inner struggle he had been having. The cause of Buchman's bitterness is well documented elsewhere, but in Keswick, our travelling group wanted to focus on the transformation. He had realized that whoever else may have been wrong, his own gut response was also a key part of the problem. After what happened in the chapel, he wrote 6 letters of apology to the men against whom he felt so angry.
To help focus our thinking, we looked at the chapel, which was a couple of 100 yards from our meeting venue. We chewed over these issues on a boat trip and walked around Lake Derwentwater. It also helped to realize that Buchman was 29 at that time, which was near the age of Chris Breitenberg, one of our travelers, who, like Buchman, was also from the USA.
In Keswick, I was introduced as the person who was the closest living example of what Frank Buchman would have looked like when he had his experience in Keswick. He was 29 then, I'm 27 now. And when I was thinking about that, I was really relating to Frank Buchman's arrogance in this situation. He was convicted, and that was great, about his beliefs and what he wanted to do with the boys' home in Philadelphia, but he was so arrogant that he couldn't see his part in the problem. And so he had an experience in Keswick where he realized that his pride and his ego was getting in the way. As a 27-year-old guy, I related to that, and it challenged me to think more about how my ego and my pride get in the way of my relationships and what I'm trying to do to make this a better planet.
Like Chris, each of us shared in small group discussions what we had been thinking. It was helpful to have Buddhist and Muslim perspectives. As Mr. Tanaka from Japan said, "Being a Buddhist, I share all the moral standards that Frank Buchman urged us to observe. I have appreciated Christians taking their faith seriously and thinking of the world more than just personal salvation."
And even in the world of Buddhism, there are such experiences, extraordinary experiences possible. But of course, we cannot expect that everybody has a chance to experience a similar kind of miracles.
Who wrote, "Do not make a principle out of your experience. Allow God to use the same imagination with others that He used with you."
And somehow, for me, being a Muslim is much more a way of life, something which is happening here, than a real experience of something. And I wonder if everybody is given this gift of feeling.
Frank Buchman, as a Christian, saw the cross represented a daily decision to cross out his own will and submit the will of God. And that's the center to Islam as well. Islam, one meaning is submitting to the will of God. Surrender.
And really listening to people, I find it hard to put myself aside and really listen. So I feel I'm still really at the beginning stages.
Our aim is never to mediate. This was to someone who was urging him to intervene between 2 countries in Europe. Our aim is never to mediate, but to change lives and unite them, that was the 2 warring parties in Europe, by making them life changers.
Archie Mackenzie, former UK ambassador